Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Civo webinar. I'm very excited about this one because, well, first of all, we're doing it in a different time zone in India. And the reason for that is because we're going to talk about the future of cloud in India. And we have Janakiram joining us, who has done some amazing work in the field. Janakiram, thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate you giving the time. I'm very, very excited to be having this conversation with you. Do you want to give yourself a quick intro?
Absolutely. Thanks, Kunal. Hello, everyone. My name is Janakiram, short name Jani, based out of Hyderabad, India. I'm currently an industry analyst. I focus on the emerging technologies. I've been a solopreneur, performing market research, analysis, and advising startups and platform companies for the last decade or so. Prior to becoming a solopreneur, I was working for AWS, and before that, almost a decade at Microsoft. So this is my 26th or 27th year of being in the industry. I'm excited to join Kunal to discuss the impact of cloud computing on taking the India's digital mission forward.
I'm feeling so much imposter syndrome. You have 26 years of experience, and I am 25. So,
No, that gives me complex. It makes me just feel old.
what gives me? But you have more experience. So, I'm obviously the good thing is that I get to learn, from people in the industry and from their experiences. But very excited, and Cibo is have we're doing some nice announcements in India. We are going to be at KubeCon in India. If you're coming, we are the platinum sponsor. So do check it out. Check us out there. Check out our social media handles for all the upcoming announcements and content and pieces and all sorts of things. Cool. Let us know where you're joining from. We are already getting some shout outs for Johnny. So that's good in the chat. We are streaming this on all the platforms, so you can let us know where you're joining from and also send in your questions that we will be answering in the end. So let's get started. Johnny, today I had a conversation with a very big company. I can't name them. Very big. Everyone knows them in India. And the conversation I had was they were telling me that they are moving their workloads to cloud native and Kubernetes now. This is 2024. They haven't done it all this while. That they're still in the process of doing it. So they're like, we are evaluating this provider, that provider. It's still not done. We need to get on a call with some people. What do you suggest? Let's collaborate with Civo and so on and so forth. But this is the trend that I have seen. Like I attend a lot of conferences and events, and especially in India as well. Like we have all seen in the news, the digital economy is growing rapidly. There was a recent survey last year, like I think in the next 2 3 years, the cloud industry alone will reach 18 or 17 billion dollars just in India. But we have seen the pace of cloud adoption is not equal across the industries. So from your experience, like what do you see as the main challenges that are holding businesses back from fully embracing cloud technologies?
Yeah, great start. So, I was the first evangelist for AWS in India. And since then, I've been talking to enterprises, trying to convince them to adopt cloud. One major barrier that I actually consider, and which is obvious, which is very, very visible even today, is the mindset and the perception issue, right? So many businesses have these concerns about data security, control. Um, Migrating to cloud will compromise their ability to control their data, their governance, and their privacy, and all of that. So that is still a mindset that is very, very visible in the Indian enterprise community. So that is one. Second is cost and affordability. While cloud is definitely cost effective, and it actually takes care of your cost over a period of time, there are still many concerns around high cost involved in migrating to the cloud, particularly the initial investments in migration, working with system integrators, and basically the overall cost involved in migrating to the cloud, the affordability, and the return on investment over a period of time is definitely something that is acting as a barrier. And third thing is regulatory compliance. India, unlike other countries, doesn't have a very well defined regulatory and compliance policy. It is evolving. The Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which was announced in a recent past, I think 2023, it is a good beginning, but it is very porous. It doesn't really have like a very well defined policy or regulatory or a compliance framework which will give the confidence to enterprises. That is one of the biggest challenges. Unlike EU, where there are uh, well-defined policies and regulatory frameworks, we don't have very structured policies that define how the data sovereignty is maintained and what are the frameworks involved in that. That is another major challenge that I'm seeing. And finally, something that is very obvious is the mismatch between the demand and supply. Despite the rise of awareness and excitement around cloud, there is an acute shortage of skilled professionals that are proficient in managing, operating, and running the cloud workloads. So the talent and skill gap is very, very obvious. A lot of engineering students are learning in emerging technologies. Now there are more number of AWS certified professionals, Kubernetes certified, application developers and administrators in India, but that is not sufficient. There is an acute shortage of talent and skills that's required to effectively migrate workloads from on-premises to the cloud and keep them running. So to summarize, one is the mindset of CXOs of large enterprises. Cost is still a prohibitive factor. It is extremely important for CXOs to make the decision. Lack of well-defined, well-structured regulatory and compliance framework, and lack of talent. Those are some of the challenges that I am seeing in the Indian ecosystem and the Indian market.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So overall, you can summarize it as a lack of awareness on, just how to effectively use the cloud. Like everyone knows about the benefits, but then they're like, okay, it's complex, it's costly, all the things you mentioned around security, compliance, migration, and especially like finance industries and healthcare industries where data privacy is, critical. It's a little bit like, I don't know the right word I'm looking for. Because when we talk about India, like developers, like Kubernetes project, for example, I may be wrong, but I think Indians compromise of like second most contributors or something to the Kubernetes
Yeah.
project, which is the, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, second largest open source project in the world. But
Yes.
still, what you have said, it's true. There are a huge number. I know, you know, I graduated recently, and uh, when I was not working at Civo full time, I used to do a lot of student outreach and whatnot. So I went to universities and stuff, and I interact with people. You have nailed the point of skill issue, and that's what we have seen. I have personally seen that. So how are both of these things true? Most number of contributors are also from India, and lack of skills are also. Is it just because we have 1.4 billion people, so there's like a big divide, or but my to summarize the question, do you think there's like an, because obviously there are cloud providers, there's AWS, GCP, whatnot, they're all doing these certifications and all these other things, but still we have not seen like a, crossing the chasm uh, for the cloud adoption in India. Do you think there's an untapped market, and like what are the key reasons for these issues that you have mentioned?
Yeah, you made a very interesting point. You mentioned Indians are the largest committers and contributors to the Kubernetes open source project, which is absolutely true. But at the same time, there is a tremendous gap between what is required and where the skills are. So, the interesting point is a lot of Indian engineers that are contributing and writing open source are outside of India, are living outside of India. And they work for large companies like Red Hat, Broadcom, Google, Microsoft, and they are basically employed by these platform companies, and they are committing to open source projects, and they are leading this entire revolution. But unfortunately, if you look at the engineers and the developer ecosystem within India, there is a lot of gap. There is a large gap, and particularly the services companies versus the product and platform companies. There is a lot of gap between the skills that are available. So a lot of services companies today are driven by large enterprises who are like conglomerates in Europe and US, and they are basically hiring these engineers from solution providers and system integrators who are still managing slightly older technologies, and they are not even connected to the emerging technologies and what is current. So if you look at this large ecosystem that works out of India and consumes technology, they are still a step behind the engineering work that is done in the US, and particularly those who are working with product and platform companies. So that is where there is a slight gap, and we can't really blame them, because enterprises are always they don't go after the shiny new thing. They want to maintain stable systems, and that's why these engineers working at system integrators and solution providers are hired, and they are basically managing and maintaining the systems. Whereas platform companies based out of India, outside of India, and Indians working in all these subsidiaries and the headquarters are on the cutting edge, and they are basically leading this entire momentum and the revolution of open source, like projects that include CNCF, Kubernetes, and many other open source projects that are kind of taking the entire industry forward.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And you mentioned the point regarding Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Recently, there was a conference or something. Can't remember the name, but Modi ji was there, our Prime Minister, and the chairman from Reliance was also there. Not Mukesh Ambani, but I believe his son. And he mentioned the point of data sovereignty. And then it went viral on Twitter, like, okay, the headline was Indian data should stay in India. This was when the Starlink debate was happening, and I saw a big, I saw a big cultural and mindset shift on social media, because you see in Europe and US, people are very vocal about data privacy and whatnot. But on the socials, they were like, I see people were divided in two groups. Some people were like, okay, maybe this is not that important, and then some people were like, yeah, this guy is saying making some really really valid points. So my question to you is, for people who may be new to this, like, we are not, like, obviously, like GDPR and stuff are really enforced in India. We don't have that much strict compliance yet, so that is why maybe people are not aware. But according to you, like, why do you think data sovereignty matters, and it's so critical in India's context, and why is it that it is happening now? Is it like better late than never, or just try to explain to people why this thing is really important?
Yeah, so data sovereignty has been like the most critical factor, since the evolution of cloud. And today, if you look at all the major hyperscalers and major cloud providers, they have footprint in India. They have data centers, not one, but multiple regions that are available in India. So India, being one of the largest democracies in the world, need to be very, very concerned about the data leakage and about their privacy getting compromised. So obviously, with a lot of digitization, with a lot of investments that are going on into the digital infrastructure, whether you look at our UPI, which is led by the National Payments Corporation of India, or for that matter, just a few years ago when Arogya Setu was launched during the COVID vaccination, and when we had to track, no on-premises infrastructure can ever support that. They obviously need to go for dynamic, elastic infrastructure to provide that level of scale for the Indian population. So obviously, the government agencies, and the partners who are working with governments have to rely on cloud. So when that is the case, we obviously cannot trust a cloud provider or an infrastructure provider who doesn't keep our data within the political and geographical boundaries of our country. If something goes wrong, and if already we have many cases where Aadhaar cards are available in the dark web, and voter ID cards are available for sale, PAN cards are available for sale. When we read all of this, it is very scary, and it actually makes a case for keeping our data within our political and geographical boundaries. So that is the single most important aspect on why we need data sovereignty and digital sovereignty. It is not just data, but we need like a digital sovereignty policy that focuses not just on data, but the entire infrastructure that is available to us. So personally identifiable information that resides within our political and geographical boundaries. Government projects that are actually running, they are running on an empaneled infrastructure vendor or a cloud provider that is accepted by the government as one of the trusted, authorized cloud infrastructure. So that becomes very critical. India's digitization is just at the tip of the iceberg. We are going to see more and more of it. And this is the opportunity for players to work with the government and gain the confidence and the trust of the government, the agencies and people, to ensure that the infrastructure, data, and all the applications that are being serving the citizens are pretty much residing within the political and geographical boundaries of this country. So it becomes extremely important from that aspect.
Yes, and before we move forward, we have crossed around 200 viewers right now, and we are getting some questions. So keep the questions coming. We'll be answering those shortly. But just adding on to your point, I want to hear your thoughts about what do you call it, AI regulations. I have not seen those coming out from the government yet. So it's coming, and there's so many things like deep fake regulations and how people use the data to train organizations use data for training purposes and whatnot. What are your thoughts on that, the AI regulations in India?
Yeah, that's a very sensitive topic, and it's very porous. We Before we actually regulate AI models and the data sets that are used to train models, we need to fix a lot of things. AI is slightly ahead of the it is not the top priority at this point. Of course, it is coming at a much faster pace than we think. But before India can step in and define policies for AI, data for AI, deep fakes, and put some regulatory frameworks and laws, we have a lot of work to do. And as I mentioned, we have to first define our digital sovereignty policy before we can even talk about regulating AI and regulating the models, because currently no country is able to successfully define an AI policy that prevents people from creating deepfakes or using data to train models. It is still evolving, and India is still behind when it comes to defining some of the core mandatory basic hygiene, compliance, and regulatory frameworks. Once we get them right, then we can actually look at AI, the data for AI, the models, and the legal framework to controlling any of those. But currently, we are still debating, arguing, and kind of evolving our data and digital sovereignty framework. So it's a bit early to actually have anything to that focuses on AI.
Yeah, baby steps. Cool.
Absolutely.
So since we're talking about the future of like cloud in India, and we're starting with the current state, when we talk about the various cloud options that are available in the market, there's public, private, and hybrid. So companies feel overwhelmed, like which one to choose. So how can businesses in India decide which type of cloud best suits their need? And we have a question from Ram in the chat as well, which is a similar question. What is your view on multi-cloud and why is it important for enterprises?
Absolutely. Now, this is a question that I've been hearing for last decade or slightly more than that. Uh, so one thing is very clear. Data is not going to move out of the enterprise data centers. Customers, particularly large enterprises, have invested heavily in products like SAP, PeopleSoft, Oracle, and a lot of legacy enterprise applications. And that's where the digital nervous system of any enterprise lies. That is very critical. Now, we cannot just lift and shift these 20-year-old workloads to the cloud and just shut down the data center, and move everything away and say we are done. Everything is on the cloud. No, it doesn't work that way. So that's the reason why hybrid cloud has picked up so much of momentum and attention from enterprise CXOs. So there are a few trends. Number one, the large line of business systems, which I call as the digital backbone of an enterprise, like the ERPs, the CRM, the homegrown line of business applications, the core applications, the data backing all these applications will continue to be on premises. That is not going anywhere. But the applications, the multi-channel applications, now when I say multi-channel, today an application front end has multiple facades. One of that is, of course, web, then there is desktop, then there are chatbots, then there are instant messaging and chat applications like WhatsApp, Telegram. A lot of customer engagement is going on with these channels, right? Now, interestingly, those channels are what are getting moved to the cloud, while the data continue to reside where it is, inside a captive data center or an enterprise data center. Now, if that is the case, how about latency? Because you cannot have your elastic dynamic web application running in the cloud while your data continues to reside in your captive data center. That's the reason why we have a hybrid cloud, which seamlessly connects your on-prem assets with the cloud. And again, that doesn't mean we're going to magically get rid of latency. We'll continue to see latency and the gap between these engagement channels, let's call them of systems of engagement, and the systems of record. Systems of record is spread across the cloud and on-prem. That's exactly where the telecom players have a critical role to play. So what the telcos in India, and for that matter, globally, internationally, doing is creating this dedicated connectivity between data centers and the cloud providers' regions. For example, whether it is Azure Express Connect or peering of Google, or any of the other technologies which are basically extending an enterprise data center to the cloud, using a telco backbone effectively reduces this latency, and it gives you best of both. You get to continue your sensitive, critical workloads, running them on premises, while building modern applications and new channels of engagement on the cloud. And you have a dedicated backbone provided by a telco like Tata Communications or Bharti Airtel, bridging the gap between these two. Now, this topology where your applications that are partner facing, customer facing, and public facing are on the cloud, but your digital backbone is still on-prem, is actually the hybrid cloud. And that is gaining a lot of momentum, and it is driving a lot of adoption. And it's a win-win for all the three: the customer, the infrastructure provider or the cloud provider, and the telco. So the telco is actually the critical entity that is connecting both the parties here. So that is what I'm seeing, and a lot of enterprises have a hybrid cloud implementation and working with a telco partner to basically connect this. Now, coming to multi-cloud, that is also becoming very interesting. As someone asked, no customer has their assets running or dedicated to just one cloud provider. Every cloud has its merits and demerits. It is not about debating which one is better than the other, but customers are going after those best of breed services offered by a cloud provider and creating a multi-cloud fabric, which is effectively giving them everything that they need to run their uh, digital infrastructure and digital platforms. So I know many customers who are spread across multiple hyperscalers and still seamlessly come across as a unified single application or single interface to their customers.
That was amazing. Thanks a lot for sharing, Johnny. And from what I understood, I think that the key is just starting with an assessment of your business needs. Like when you spoke about data sensitivity, if that is a priority, then you have the private cloud and the data centers where enterprises they are utilizing that. And then obviously, if you need scalability and flexibility, public cloud works really well. And the mix of that, you really nailed the point over there. And yeah, I mean, I want to talk a little bit about the cloud adoption. So you mentioned at the first, like the beginning of the session, the concerns around cost. I feel like it's much more bigger for smaller businesses, right? They are much more concerned from what I have seen. So, what strategies can companies use to get the most out of the cloud without overspending? And what are some of the so here's the thing, like when people are starting out with cloud, they're like very excited. Few months down the line, they get hit up with the bill, and they're like, okay, this is a lot, and it's not what the initial promise that cloud made, to make everything more affordable, and all these other things. So people are just surprised, and they're like, we wanted to use cloud to reduce costs, and now we are short up with this bill. How can My question is, how can folks prepare for that? What do you think is like one of the main reasons that this happens? I personally feel like people, when they're starting out, you get a lot of free credits. For example,
Yeah.
$100,000, you get free credits, and they're like, okay, we got free credits. It's not really. I feel like it's not really free, you know. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, free credits are a great start. A lot of SMEs and startups get excited when they look at these free credits, and they quickly move to the cloud, deploy their application, go live, and very soon the credits will get exhausted and they'll see the reality, which is their credit card bill at the end of the month. So one of the major blind spots that I have observed in cloud migration, or even starting with a greenfield application on the cloud, is not understanding how the cloud basically functions, right? A lot of customers that I have dealt with simply do a lift and shift. That is, if they are running on a massive server on prem, they'll simply launch a VM that matches the number of cores of the CPU, the memory, and the storage. They just SFTP, the entire data. They basically move the entire workload, launch, wire it up with a basic, the DNS endpoint, and then go live. But that is where the challenge is. Now, what customers don't really spend time on is optimizing their workload for the cloud. For example, if you look at compute on the cloud, it is not just VMs, though it is very tempting and very easy to get started by launching a VM and basically copy pasting your workload as is inside a VM and going live. Compute on cloud has multiple forms and multiple shapes. It starts with event driven serverless environment. There are containers, there are serverless containers, and then there are VMs, then there are bare metal dedicated instances. So if you really want to optimize your application for cost and performance, you got to spend time understanding the characteristics of the workload and mapping it to these offerings available from the cloud provider. For example, by moving a tiny part of your application into serverless, you can save a significant amount of compute bill. By moving your batch processing, to containers and running them as jobs will again save you significantly on your compute cost. And then taking advantage of some of the newer capabilities, like many providers offer per pod pricing of Kubernetes. Or in some cloud providers environments, the control plane is completely free and you only pay for the nodes. So tapping into various flavors of compute and taking advantage of those capabilities and mapping your workload and refactoring your application to take advantage of this is very, very critical. I don't see that happening effectively, number one. Number two, every cloud provider has various pricing options, various pricing mechanisms to tap into. For example, you can go for like a spot instance, for example, on EC2, which is very, very ephemeral kind of a compute, that can just go down anytime. Maybe there are some workloads that can take advantage of the spot instances. And then there is on demand, where you can enable auto scale and just stretch your workload across multiple nodes on demand and pay only for what you use. And then there are some workloads that need to keep running irrespective of the season, the time of the day, the weekday. Now for that, go for a slightly long-term commitment, where you get cheaper compute. So this is how you basically tap into two different dimensions. One dimension is the spectrum of compute options that are available to you. Second is taking advantage of the pricing options that are available to you. Now, this is just compute, mind you. I'm not even talking about storage, or I'm not talking about databases and network, but you got to do this across every layer of your application on these two dimensions. What are those managed services that I can tap into? And what are the pricing options or pricing optimizations that I can enable across these environments? Now, this is evolving a job function by itself. And obviously, not everyone is well equipped to understand these dimensions. So you have new job function that is like very hot, which is the finops job, right? So the financial operations, that is the role that many enterprises are hiring for. And some companies who cannot afford to have a full-time FinOps employee or FinOps specialist, they're basically outsourcing their FinOps to a third party who will audit their entire workload and come back with options for optimization of their cost and also on performance. So this is how you basically take advantage of cloud without getting shocked at the end of the month by looking at your credit card bill.
Yeah, and I believe like whenever we talk about unexpected cloud bills, um, you want to reduce your cloud costs. I think it all starts with the visibility or monitoring. So if you don't know where you're spending your money, you would not be able to reduce your bill. And I think that's what the FinOps people also focus on pretty heavily: visibility across the organization, all the departments. Um, so yeah, having a good monitoring setup. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention was like you mentioned resources and making the most out of your like what your needs are. And I've seen that people, this is where the multi-cloud approach comes into picture as well. Like there might be one provider which is offering something for a more reasonable price compared to other ones. So you're not only putting all your eggs in one basket, but you're making the best use case out of what various providers have to offer. But you mentioned a point regarding the the teams, and the skills, and we were talking about the skill issue in the previous section as well. But when we talk about small businesses and startups, they often lack very large IT teams, and they still want to innovate. you know so how can cloud solutions be made more accessible and manageable for all the smaller players in India?
This is actually not a challenge specific to India, but I think for all the customers of cloud, this is a big challenge. Where do I start? How do I optimize? How do I take the advantage, the best of what is available? That is where I think generative AI is going to play a significant role. Um, Now, most of the cloud providers are going to launch an assistant that's going to sit in their console and will help you make some very critical decisions, because these assistants are backed by models that are exclusively fine tuned on the documentation, the pricing models, and various nuances of the cloud in itself. So in about 12 months from now, you would see a very interesting trend where cloud provider specific AI assistants walking you through the architectural decisions, cost decisions, and deployment decisions. And of course, suggesting the most optimized mechanism. We're already seeing very early versions of that. For example, there is a Copilot for Azure, there is Gemini Cloud Assist that is inside the Google Cloud, and Amazon Q. But all of them are very primitive. They are currently just like a chat GPT for documentation. They don't do much. For example, they cannot take your workload definition and say, hey, break your application to use serverless here, containers here, VMs here, or use pod instances for this and use on demand. They can't do it yet, but that's where we are getting into. So that's the spot where Gen AI meets cloud, and like every other industry that is getting revolutionized by Gen AI, we are going to see this happen very quickly. So that is a trend that I am actually predicting will take place in next 8 to 12 months. We are not very far from that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited. I think this is where the whole debate comes, like the state of AI in the future. So it's definitely not going to be like a replacement, but only a helping hand, if you will. Um, so we can focus on things that actually matter. You know.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, I think from my understanding, when we talk about innovation, and if you're a smaller team, I think there are two responsibilities. The first one being from the cloud provider's end. Like if you're a cloud provider and you're making it difficult for people to, not just cloud provider, you're any company, or especially let's say a tech company or dev tool, you're making it difficult for people to use your project. So you have bad documentation, lack of support, community resources, and whatnot. I feel like you should work on that. That's one aspect to it. And the second one being, I think from the company standpoint, you should you know um, just engage in the community. So like community driven support, developer meetups, all these conferences like KubeCon and whatnot. I think you learn a lot from people across the industry, and these are just some of the ways, just by getting involved, that you can learn how various other companies are doing it. Just one of the ways. But yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is just be vocal about it. If you're facing an issue or
Yeah,
something, be open minded and learn from others. It's a big landscape. Yeah,
absolutely.
cool. And
You just spoke
you,
like a typical field CTO.
yeah. No, I think I love learning from people, so it's what I always recommend to others as well. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned around, no, you mentioned also about the lack of skills, and we have some questions over here, which is so the question is like, India has a young and talented developer base, which is obviously a big advantage. What are some of the skills or areas that people should focus on to stay relevant as the technologies evolve? Because you mentioned in the next 12 months, these tools or these, agents will be coming out. So what do you learn today to be relevant in the next 12 months?
I would actually say just one thing, right? Uh, for your job function and for your aspiration, it doesn't matter where you are, but wherever you want to be, like you want to be a product manager, you want to be a senior developer, you want to be an architect, first get that very clear. Once you do that, second, identify all the AI tools that map to that job function and start mastering them. So it is not about learning one more language or one more DevOps product or one more scripting language. Those days are gone. You are not going to be hired because you know a new language, or you can do that using a different scripting environment. You'll be hired because of your ability to choose the right toolkit, AI toolkit, to get your job done. So it doesn't matter where you are, which job function you are in, handpick those set of AI tools that significantly add value to your job function. Master them. It is not about mastering the programming language or the technology, but mastering these AI tools is going to be significantly valuable to anyone who is in the industry. That is what is going to be critical 12 to 18 months from now. For example, if you're a developer, learn how to use cursor, how to use uh, aider, for example, or how do you use any of these LLMs to help you generate code. uh, so learning these toolkits, which are a part of your overall job function, and they help you at every stage, will make you more valuable. So not learning these AI tools will be the biggest setback for you in the career. So if there is a single most important investment that you can make, is to learn those AI tools that accelerate your job on a day-to-day basis. That's it. That's the only thing that's required.
Yes, and we always get this question around, you know, AI replacing developers and whatnot. But I feel like you have really, again nailed the really nice point. If we talk about few decades ago, people were doing everything manually, and then came Kubernetes. So people were not like, okay, now Kubernetes is automating so many things, we are out of jobs. Instead, what happened is it created more jobs. And you were, let's say, coding in assembly or C or whatever. Then came modern languages, and you do automatic garbage collection or whatnot, all the new languages, what they do. People were not like, okay, now I don't have to do these memory management thing manually. These programming languages are doing it for me. I'm going to be out of job. Instead, what happened is people started focusing on the real things, and with AI tools, I think in the next few years, the barrier to entry is reducing quite a bit. So the way we are communicating with the machines, like, let's say, okay, you're doing it in natural language now. Maybe a few years ago you could get away with just coding alone in your basement. But I think in the future now, other skills are going to be much more relevant, like, communication skills and empathy and the problem solving and whatnot as an engineer. Um, so I think that's great. And second point being, like, if you take a look at job jobs that are coming out right now for various industries, let's say healthcare, aviation, teaching, whatever, everyone is trying to jump on the AI train, but they don't have the right people to govern that. So they are actually giving you an opportunity to be an expert in that field. You
Right.
know, yeah. So I think there's some. I read it online. AI will not replace you. A person using AI will replace you. So I think
Absolutely.
we have a lot of real problems to solve. Like, there's like cancer and environment, and we'll talk later about sustainability and other things. And I think what you mentioned, it's just a step ahead into that
Exactly.
mission.
Yep.
Cool. Follow-up question, someone is asking, how can someone step into the world of cloud and DevOps if they're coming from a software engineering background?
Yeah. So, if you are a software engineer, you would have focused on building an application, but that application will have to serve an end user or a customer uh, at the end of the day. So you have to basically make the transition from thinking from a developer's point of view on, oh, what is this feature and how do I code this, to more of, okay, how do I make this more resilient? How do I make this scalable? How do I make this secure? And how do I make this available? So when you start thinking in those lines, which are basically taking you from a design environment to a deployment environment and the runtime environment of your application. You automatically assume the role of an ops person, because there is a fundamental shift coming from a developer, from a development background to an operations or an SRE role. So you have to understand what are the success metrics of this job, and how can I extend what I already know about my environment, my application, to those new success metrics and those new attributes. So it's a fundamental shift of the mindset from focusing on the product feature and user experience to more of the runtime characteristics of an application. And once you get that mindset, then you can handpick some of the tools. There are a lot of tools that are available, and end of the day, they are just tools. They are not magical. If you are learning GitHub Actions, it is not rocket science. Basically, you need to understand the idea of continuous integration and deployment, and then you can handpick a tool and master it. But understanding the big picture and making a conscious shift from where you are to where you want to be is very important. And particularly for a software developer to DevOps or SRE, this is very, very critical.
Yeah, and if you already have a software engineering background, I feel like you already have that edge, because you know the software development life cycle, and then you can onboard the cloud native or DevOps train,
Exactly.
and yeah, you'll have a much more better clarity. We have around like less than 15 minutes left. I'm really loving this conversation. We are getting some more questions. We'll answer at the end, but I want to bring the point we were mentioning earlier around sustainability. It's a growing priority for businesses everywhere, not just India.
Yeah.
So my question is, how can companies help in reducing, their environmental impact? I mean, obviously, from a cloud provider standpoint, you're using renewable energy for your data centers and whatnot. But how can companies in India help support this, like businesses?
Yeah, for me, see, moving to cloud is a big step towards sustainability, because when you are moving from a dedicated data center that is consuming a lot of energy to a shared infrastructure, you're already taking a step towards optimizing and making your applications run on more sustainable infrastructure, because most of the cloud providers are taking this very seriously than an enterprise data center provider or an internal IT team. So moving to cloud is the first step that you can do to meet the basic sustainability goal. It is going to reduce the footprint and lets you tap into the innovations and sustainability efforts of the cloud provider. That is number one. Number two is, again, the resource efficiency by optimizing resource allocation and making sure that your workloads are optimized completely. It is very important. It might sound very strange, but again, moving from a long running full blown VM to a per invocation compute resource will eventually in the long term have a significant impact on the way resources are being allocated and the way you are contributing to this effort. So resource optimization is very important. And then supporting remote work and facilitating remote operations will reduce the carbon footprint associated with commuting. Today there is a huge debate, particularly post COVID, on work from home and return to office. But I am a big believer. Of course, I'm a solopreneur. I work out of my home office. I'm actually sitting in my home office right now. But I believe if companies are encouraging work from home culture and giving the flexibility to employees to reduce uh, the carbon emissions that are basically responsible during the commute and during the transportation, that is going to be significant. If you just take Bangalore, it's a nightmare. And if we have to start our sustainability efforts, start with what you can control, and that is traffic. And if you are a large software company, and if tens of thousands of employees are commuting every day from their home to their offices, you are indirectly causing a major damage to the environment. And just supporting remote work and letting your employees use a flexible commute or flexible work option will do its part on sustainability. Apart from all the high tech, clean and green energy, the renewable energy, all of those are very important. But the number one thing that we can do today is to reduce the emissions from our vehicles. And that can happen when we are in a flexible work environment where remote operations are respected, encouraged, and supported by your employer.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, we are a fully remote company, and I feel like it has also given us the opportunity to work with amazing people from all over the world. And I think it has been
Absolutely.
just amazing. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing, Jani. And you mentioned before, we started the webinar that you are now diving into the AI and LLM space and Gen AI and all these other things. So we're seeing like AI and IoT. They have a lot of exciting opportunities. And how do you see these technologies transforming industries in India? Like, especially, I feel like sectors like healthcare, for example, and agriculture. Um, what do you see the role of AI and IoT and these sort of like the buzzwords? Uh,
Absolutely.
how can they help in the the future of cloud and infrastructure in India?
Yeah, I'm actually very passionate about the convergence of machine intelligence with modern infrastructure, right? So, machine intelligence is all about IoT and AI, and modern infrastructure is all about cloud native, serverless, and the cloud. So, when we bring these two together, they form a lethal combination. And since you mentioned these two verticals, agriculture and healthcare, let me just give you a glimpse of what is possible within those domains. Now, in agriculture, I know some entrepreneurs, I know some ex ISB graduates who are working with farmers day in, day out in southern India, where they are bringing IoT technology to sense the fertility of the soil, the moisture of the soil, and applying AI to that to predict the yield of the crop. And when you bring these high tech capabilities to very traditional age old occupation, which is agricultural and farming, they basically revolutionize the whole thing. So there are a lot of innovations that are happening in this space just by bringing the combination of IoT and AI. I'm talking about agriculture and farming. And in terms of healthcare, there is a shortage of niche specialist doctors, may it be oncology or cardiology or pediatrics. Getting the right doctor even to look at the report and diagnose is becoming a big challenge in countries like India, and even for that matter, even in the US, in developed countries, because these highly skilled experts and specialists are scarce resources. It's very difficult to get an appointment with, for example, a pediatric cardiologist who is specializing in diagnosing cardiology problems in kids. That's exactly where AI can play a significant role. I know a company that is basically building a smart stethoscope, that helps perform basic diagnosis on kids suffering with cardiac problems, and they can generate a report uh, that is going to help an expert doctor very quickly come to an understanding, and then he can take that forward. Technology is never a replacement to a doctor, technology is never a replacement to a farmer, but they can definitely accelerate the cycle. And today, as we speak, uh, healthcare institutions like Manipal hospitals in Bangalore, Apollo in Hyderabad, Narayana Eye Care, most of them are employing AI for performing various diagnoses. And interestingly, these models are running at the edge and partially on the cloud. So, because you cannot really send the the patient data, which is very sensitive, to the cloud, you need to have a layer that kind of obscures and anonymizes the data. And that's where edge computing plays a significant role. So, these life saving equipment, like the MRI machines and the radiology machines are connected to an edge computer that is running a GPU that is running local models. And then there is a cloud-based model that will further, reinforce the decisions or the diagnosis made by these edge models. And this entire workflow is going to accelerate diagnosis and help save a lot of lives. So it's a very, very interesting and also very valuable mechanism, a combination of technology combined with the domains. And with Gen AI coming in, we'll see this accelerate further.
Yeah, that's what I'm truly excited about when we talk about, the future of AI research and medicine and all these other things. Cool. Thanks for sharing, Yanni. We have like a few minutes left. Before I ask the last question, can we do a quick rapid fire?
Sure.
We have this one question from P. Mohan. How important are the certifications for the freshers?
For freshers, certifications are valuable. It gives a stamp, it gives a validation that you're hardworking, you're disciplined, and you know the basic hygiene about a technology. So for freshers, I strongly recommend certifications. But if you are in the industry, um, I have a very different advice. But since the topic is about freshers, I think it makes sense to pursue. It gives you a validation, it gives you confidence, it gives you a sense of accomplishment, and some kind of a label that you can demonstrate to your potential employer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think some of the certifications, I think I personally feel like the ones that are truly valuable are the ones that sort of like mock the real world scenarios. So when you go for like KCDs and whatnot, you will have a proctored exam. They'll give you like a hands-on exercise. And I think part of the reason why many senior people might not go for these is because they already have that practical experience to showcase. So completely agree. And Devanshu is asking just a curious question. When you get stuck on any question or something in general, how do you try to solve it? Like in a real world scenario, could you give an example?
Well, I don't have any superpowers. I used to look up Stack Overflow, GitHub issues, read the documentation, post in the forums, take help of community. I am like any other developer or any other ops engineer. But of late, I have been relying quite a lot on AI tools. Perplexity is my go-to tool for debugging a lot of issues. I just copy paste the error on Perplexity, and many times, I think 7 out of 10 times, Perplexity points me to the right solution. And in many times, I can just copy paste a command to fix it. So increasingly, AI is stepping into the domain and the realm of debugging, root cause analysis, triaging, and fixing issues. And you should start taking advantage of those.
Couldn't agree more. I use AI tools as well for debugging and whatnot. And yeah, as we spoke about earlier, AI acting as a companion and not like as a replacement. All right, this was really fun. My last question is, just as a summary, what do you think will define the future of cloud in India? Are there any, for people who are watching and it's being recorded as well, are there any specific opportunities that businesses and developers should focus on?
Yeah, it's definitely where AI and where AI meets cloud. I think that's the next big driver for cloud. Till now, cloud has been the playground for compute, storage, network, databases, and running modern workloads. But I think cloud is becoming the logical destination for AI. So, what is the next big thing for cloud in India? It's definitely AI. And you should absolutely focus on that if you haven't started yet.
Cool, cool. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for sharing, Johnny. This was a great conversation. Thanks everyone for joining. Do check out our socials for upcoming announcements, and we'll leave the links to Johnny's social media handles and the websites in the description below as well in YouTube. But Johnny is popular. If you just Google his name, you'll find you'll find him. But yeah, this was really fun. We will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and we'll see you at KubeCon India. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.